Hello everybody, welcome to another review. So I'm going to be reviewing the brand new album by Rise Against. This is Ricochet. So I have talked about the title track Ricochet on the single collection series I try and do once a week, which is me talking about new singles, and that was released as kind of the last single right before the album came out. So I will go into more detail about Ricochet there, because I definitely have got some things I want to say, and I think a separate video for it would be nice. I'm still going to talk about it anyway in the context of the record. But yeah, this is the new album that I don't really think there was much hype going into it, because the single loadout has just been awful. You have singles like Nod and Prizefighter, which kind of give a mixed reception to, oh, this is what Rise Against going for. I guess it's okay, but the production is very shoddy already, and I feel like that's going to be something I hope the other singles fix aspect, but I was dead wrong with that whatsoever. Completely wrong. It's disappointing to say the least that Rise Against have had some nice sounding stuff, and even the kind of Nowhere Generation track that they released a few years ago, that still felt like it had the kind of raw classic energy of a modern Rise Against track. And not saying it's their best material, but stuff like that generally still gives me hope that the band can do something innovative and creative, and at least with good production, because the two singles there were not good. Then I listened to Ricochet, which was technically my first single of the listen, and it made me think why the band kind of wants to dabble more into this, gives this song specifically kind of this 80s, 90s kind of normal traditional rock sound. It just kind of has this bit more of a groove to it, which very much feels weird in terms of, if you've listened to anything like Savior or any of the big stuff from Rise Against, you can kind of tell, even if you just listen to some of their classic material, like records like Appeal to Reason, or The Sufferer and The Witness, you won't really get the impression of Ricochet or anything like that in its sound, and the weak production just only enhances the kind of different ideas they want to experiment with even worse, because the execution just seems very appalling, and the writing as well just kind of feels that at this point the band is struggling to keep the innovativeness of their sound and resorted to whatever this is. It doesn't get much better with tracks like I Want It All, which was another single, which kind of just felt like a really bad Kinks track. It felt like we kind of had the you really got me going sort of riff with the opening, and then with the mixing, it doesn't really help in that fact. It was down to the non-album singles to really carry this, because 4 for 4 the singles weren't very good. Some of them were just fine, I suppose. Prizefighter was just okay at best, and Nod wasn't the worst thing I've heard, but I Want It All and Ricochet were just downright awful singles. And then we had the bass record, which unfortunately just only cemented my kind of dislike for the record and the sounds that they went for this here. Damage is done, at least for the first album single. It's fine. I feel like there is definitely more of the usual sound of theirs, but with just everything being drowned out in the mix, it's just not really fun. And then you kind of stagnate down with just some of the most bland hooks, some of the weakest riffs we've had in a while, when you get to tracks like Us Against the World, and just literally track after track, it just doesn't really get any better than that. It's just a big, deep decline, and the only gold at the end, I guess, is just an okay track, which ends the record off. This album was just really one of the hardest to listen to from start to finish, because as soon as I went into it and went out twice, I had to do it. I still barely remember anything of this record, because there's just not really anything that would catch you. There's not really anything that pulls you in. The writing is just pretty weak from Rise Against standards, and there is not a single song that brings any of the enjoyment that even something like Nowhere Generation brought. So unfortunately, this album is pretty weak in my opinion. So I'm gonna have to give this one a 2 out of 5 for being just just not a very strong album. At least there's some songs that just feel fine. I feel like that's kind of the consensus of there's a bunch of songs that feel fine, but that doesn't really matter if there's not really any reason to go into them in the first place, and you get weaker songs that drag the quality of those songs down anyway. So it's just kind of a very, very mid record from them, and one that's pretty disappointing. So yeah, I hope you all enjoy. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next video.